Rachel Zegler is living proof that it takes 10 years to be an overnight success and that the universe is preparing you for your moment, even when you don't realize what that moment actually is yet. Because this girl was born in Hackensack, New Jersey. And 9 years ago, she posted her first ever song cover to YouTube under the name Rachel Zegler Loves Hugs. And she just continued posting song covers for years. But theater was always her biggest passion, doing her high school rendition of The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and West Side Story. Until one day, her friend sent her a random tweet from Steven Spielberg saying that they were doing an open audition. And they said as a joke, "Thank me when you're famous." Little did we know the foreshadowing that would be about to come. But Rachel put herself out there and sent in an audition tape. She had zero professional experience, no agent, no manager, nothing. And she was one of 30,000 applicants. She then goes through 9 rounds of auditions that took over a full year until they finally gave her the role of Maria, where she later went on to win a Golden Globe for Best Actress, becoming the first of Colombian descent to ever do so. And this is exactly what I mean when I say the universe is preparing you for your moment, even if you don't know what that moment actually is yet. Because Rachel didn't come from Hollywood or a connected family. She had no other roles, no professional experience, no way in. All she had was what was available to her, the internet. So she was posting song covers for years and years and years, practicing so that one day when she was given that opportunity, she was ready for it. And this is why it makes me so angry when people say things are just luck. Yes, certainly luck is involved with everything, right? She was one of 30,000 people. However, this is a girl who has been publicly putting herself out there to get reception, to be better and improve her craft since she was a teenager. Again, literally 9 years ago was the first ever song cover. And she never stopped posting, never stopped doing it, even when she was just doing these little high school renditions of her play. Even as much as auditioning for the West Side Story. You know, there's other kids out there who may have had dreams of being an actor or an actress, but they were doing soccer practice or maybe doing something else or hanging out with their friends. And that was preparing her, right? The fact that she was in a high school rendition of a play that she later went on to be the leading role of is not a coincidence. It is practice, perfecting her craft so that when she was given that opportunity to audition, she was good at it and she was ready for it. But this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of Rachel's journey. She has been the subject of a lot of racism and hate online, specifically in regards to the Snow White situation, which we are about to dive into, because Rachel's story is one of perseverance and not backing down in the face of criticism. In fact, it's this criticism that got her as far as she is today, because she's always willing to improve. Welcome back to Nicky at Night. I am your host, Nicky Riordan, and I could not be more excited to you all to dive into the lore of Rachel Zegler today. This story is so fascinating to me, and her specifically, because I was literally thinking about a year ago today was when she was going through all of this scandal and conversation was talked about her in the Snow White movie. And one just centered on a lot of racist conversation of her being a Latina playing Snow White, but then also just like the way like she was picked apart and pulled apart for anything after that. However, now people love her. She was in the Hunger Games movie, and that was a really beloved and successful movie. Now she's in Romeo and Juliet on Broadway, and like literally this month, I just started seeing clips of her like on my For You page all the time, especially of clips of her in Romeo and Juliet with Kit Connor. And I was reading the comments, and everybody was like, "She's so talented, she's so amazing." And I was thinking about this just like, a year ago, y'all were talking shit, like so much shit. And it is such a fascinating thing to me of how this like pendulum of public perception swings. You know, I feel like the nuance on the internet is non-existent. Either they love you or they hate you, and there is no in between. And I saw this quote from a YouTuber, she's a small YouTuber that I absolutely loved. And it was, quote, "The extent of your slay determines if what you do is okay," by Pretty Filthy on YouTube. And I thought this was such a funny way to phrase it, but it is so true. Like, I really think the reason that people just started liking Rachel Zegler now, despite not really many of things about her changing, is just because they saw her in a cool role in a movie that they liked. Whereas previously, she had only been in one thing. So they were commenting on her race, commenting on how lucky she was, wasn't talented, or was just an industry plant, you know, all these things. But then once she started being slay, everything she did suddenly became okay. And like that is, I think, what's fascinating to me about Rachel's story. And when we got diving through like a lot of this research and just a lot of the things about her, one, I think she's just a very impressive person, as we'll dive into. But remember that, and I'll hone into it later on, especially when we get to this like Snow White stuff and where she is now. But it is just so interesting to me, the like never ending criticism on the internet. So with that, thank you all for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe. Hey, follow us on Spotify. Listen to us at the gym. Listen to us in your car ride to work. Give it a 5-star rating. Oh my God, we have like 940 ratings, and I want to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. Okay, it is November 11th, the day I'm filming this. We got to get there, babe. Okay. 60 of you tune in. And also I've just been thinking like, I want to do something really fun. We're at 40,000 subscribers now, which is insane. And I really want to do something like fun and exciting for 50K. Somebody had commented this idea about doing like the Untold Lore of Nicky Reardon and just kind of doing it like a Q&A, but also like just talking about myself and like sharing things like who I am and how I got into this and what I love. I don't know, just stuff like that. I want it to feel like more personal and fun. So yeah, if you guys have any comments or suggestions, let me know. Again, 94% of the people who watch this have not subscribed to it. So click that button. Check if you've clicked the button. You think you have, but you might not. You can get more videos for free. Isn't that amazing? So with that, let's dive into Rachel. Early life, Rachel was born in Hackensack, New Jersey, but she grew up in Clifton. But as a kid, she was obsessed with Disney. There's even these pictures of her dressed up as a Snow White as a 3-year-old, which is so adorable now that she's playing Snow White. Like, what a beautiful full circle moment for her and her career and her passions. It's literally like she's living her dream of like being a princess. That's so precious and sweet. And she was born in 2001. So she's even younger than I am. Like, she's young, which is so interesting. And again, too, like when I talk about these 10 years to be an overnight success stories, I think people are like, oh, like she just got lucky when she was young. And like, yeah, no, she definitely did get like lucky that, you know, her audition was amazing and people liked her and blah, blah, blah. But again, she posted her first ever song cover to YouTube 9 years ago. She's been posting these videos of her practicing her singing, of her performances, of her theatrical performances for nearly a decade. And like, yeah, you know, like that, it happened to her really young, and that's amazing. But that doesn't mean she didn't work for it. That doesn't mean she didn't have a passion or determination to, you know, do the thing that she's doing now. And I think that's beautiful. I think that should be rewarded. And I think that we should be talking about people who are, you know, excited and eager to put themselves out there, especially at a young age. Like, I'm 25 years old and I haven't fully wrapped my head around like the idea of being perceived on the internet, you know, but to do so, so consistently and unapologetically, is a beautiful thing. So, fun fact about Rachel. Did you know that Rachel Zegler was named after Rachel Green from Friends? Like, her mom watched Friends and decided to name her kid Rachel. But this was a wasted opportunity because her older sister is named Jacqueline, which I don't know what it's from, but like, if we're gonna do it, do the full thing. You know what I mean? Like, throw me a Phoebe, throw me a Monica, like something. But this got me thinking, like, is Gen Z gonna start naming their kids like Nate Jacobs? Or like Rue and Maddie from Euphoria? Or like 11? This is my daughter 11 and this is her older brother 12. They're both in college. Like, please. I don't know why that's so funny to me. And kind of iconic. Hey, maybe destine her to become an actress. You know what I mean? Like, she's crushing it. So very cool thing to see. And again, she started posting covers to YouTube 9 years ago. She has posted theatrical songs like The Greatest Showman, Little Mermaid, some clips from her in Shrek the Musical, and covers of Hamilton, but also a lot of her musical inspiration. Covers of All Too Well by Taylor Swift, Liability by Lorde, Goodnight and Go Ariana Grande, Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine. And one day, one of her covers actually went viral on Twitter. It was her singing Shallow by Lady Gaga. Then one day, somebody comments like, oh, you just use auto-tune, blah, blah, blah. So what did Rachel do? She replies to that video of like her on the stage of an auditorium, just singing, like nothing, just holding the phone and singing. And this video has like 12 million views now. I think it probably had less than that at the time. It did go viral, but I think now it's like one of those videos that's like appreciated more and more as she's like, you know, really like hit this stride of her career. But again, it's one of those really cool things. And again, talking about like not backing down from criticism and putting herself out there. Like, I think it is so cool that her most viral moment as like a teenager is her responding to criticism. It's her literally being like, you can talk shit all you want, but I will prove to you that I have the talent and qualification to do something like this. And I thought that was so cool. And again, a very foreshadowing of omens to come and her behavior with the media. So moving on to high school, Rachel started getting super involved with theater. She did The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, 42nd Street, and then West Side Story, which was not attached to her high school. I think it was like an outside like community theater, but she played the part of Maria. So because Rachel played the part of Maria, her friend sends her a tweet from Steven Spielberg that they were doing an open audition for West Side Story. Literally just sends in a random self-tape. One of 30,000 auditions, then goes through 9 rounds of auditions, chemistry tests, interview, self-tapes over a full year. And eventually she gets this role. Steven Spielberg picks her. He said that something about her charisma really just stood out to him. Also, obviously, she's like extremely qualified as a singer and actress, but I think very cool also for Steven Spielberg to take a risk on somebody, again, like a random high school student from New Jersey, to be in like that big of a movie. And there was also something that I was watching interviews with Rachel doing research for this video. And she has like, one of the questions is like, what is the best piece of advice you've ever heard from Steven Spielberg? And she said, this is a quote from him: "Everybody else is just as scared to use as you are, so just use it." And I love that quote. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I really struggle with like social anxiety in big settings, especially like big event settings where you just feel awkward and uncomfortable and you don't know people and how anxiety driving that is, or if you're doing an audition, or if you're, anything, doing a job interview, anything. Like, remind yourself, like, yeah, you're auditioning through that thing and you're nervous and terrified. So is literally every single person walking into that room today. You know what I mean? Or a job interview, anything. Like, every single person is nervous. That is the norm. That is the base level of everyone doing the thing that you're about to do. So just use it. How do you think about like channeling that energy or owning it, being like, hey, I'm nervous? Or, even in like weird little like parties and social settings, like I've literally gone up to people and just been like, hey, I really don't know anybody here and I'm really nervous about being alone. Like, could I hang out with you? And people are so nice about that. You'll be so shocked and surprised how like kind people are. If you just use it, people are receptive to that. So anyways, I just thought this was a cool quote. Not really to do with the story of the video, but I loved it. Going back to West Side Story, this movie was highly critically acclaimed, but was actually kind of a major flop at the box office. It had a $100 million budget, but grossed only $76 million. Rachel won a Golden Globe for it. The movie received multiple Oscar nominations, but again, it did not perform well. And I think this is kind of just, people really don't like musicals. It's an interesting thing. Like Joker 2 was such a flop. It had Lady Gaga in it, a huge star. And people have been so excited to see her getting back into movies, especially like after A Star Is Born. But I think a lot of people just don't like musicals. It's a tough thing and a tough pill to swallow. It's also like just an interesting thing. Like maybe West Side Story was like too old of a thing. But this movie really put her on the map, and I think showcased that she was a raw gem of like undiscovered talent. Because the good thing about a musical is like, in order to be in it, you have to be able to act, you have to be able to sing, and you have to be able to dance, right? Like, you're not just acting, you're singing the songs. There's going to be recordings of the songs. You might have to do live performances of the songs. There's going to be choreography and all of these things. Like, it's a very important part of that. And I think people really realize like, oh, this girl is talented. Like, if this is what she's doing in her first ever movie ever, she was scouted and recognized by Steven Spielberg, and she has this type of voice, like, she is going to go somewhere. So because of that, she gets cast for the role of Snow White. And this is where things really start to hit the fan. Like, she gets cast in June of 2021. And initially, there is a lot of outrage just because she was a Latina playing Snow White, which we'll get to in a second. But this really escalates when she does this interview on the carpet for D23 Expo in 2022.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
This caused outrage online. There's one, and some of it, again, very like misguided in like racism and misogyny and a lot of the things. But there was one person who had like a very valid piece of criticism. It was a TikToker. I'll put her thing on screen. And this is what she said. Criticizing Disney princesses is not feminist. Not every woman is a leader. Not every woman wants to be a leader. Not every woman wants or craves power, and that is okay. Thinking a woman is any less valuable because she wants to fall in love or because she accepts help from somebody instead of girl bossing her way out of the problem is not feminist. And I think I actually can kind of agree with that line of thinking. You know, I don't think that like we have to view all Disney movies as like this big piece of being regressive. But Rachel's quote was really just like not dreaming of being saved by the prince, but dreaming of becoming the leader that she always knew she could be. And I think what people don't realize, especially with these like remake Disney movies that they're obsessed with doing, is that the big piece of these movies is not just for children. It's for adults. Like it's nostalgia. I think I even saw the statistic on Disney Plus that like over 50% of the subscribers are people who do not have kids or are not a kid. Like the majority of people actually consuming Disney are adults now. So like I think them wanting to have some maybe even minor sense of like looking at the plot is like normal and valid. But two, like, I don't think like what she was saying is that ridiculous. Like, I think maybe the delivery that she said it was a little, you know, like this like neoliberalism, feminism that people talk about, or very like performative feminism, and like using Disney princesses as an example of that. But at the end of the day, I think it's interesting that like, yes, Snow White is this girl who lives with like 7 dwarfs. Like, I don't know. I think that there's a bit more interesting things to explore there. You know what I mean? Or like adding a few scenes that are really about her relationship with these 7 men that she lives with, or like the way that they, you know, view her or came to respect her. Like, I think that there's room for more there. Like, it doesn't have to be A or B. And again, talking about this death of nuance on the internet, like, and I think it's also people had so much criticism of it because the movie wasn't out yet. So they're all like, oh my God, they're changing the plot of Snow White. That's so dumb. When like, and all the rest of the remakes, they haven't really like changed the plot substantially in any way. So I don't know. I think it was like very taken out of context, but moving into this, again, going to circle back to the Snow White thing. But in this time also, Rachel Zegler does the Shazam movie, which I'm sorry, I didn't watch it. Who cares? Who cares, bro? To me, Shazam is the thing that you like press on your phone and like you listen to music. You know what I mean? Anyways, she was on the red carpet for this movie and people asked her, like there was an interview. So like, oh, like what made you want to be in the DC universe? And she like says jokingly, I don't know. I just needed a job. And it is so clear that her tone, like she's joking. And I think she was really trying to be like, you know, I think very much the way that like Jennifer Lawrence is in interviews, you know, where she is very sarcastic and kind of witty and self-aware that it's an interview and ironic. But this got so much hate, again, calling her out of touch. Like, oh, you're just so lucky. Oh, you're just an industry plant. Like you're given this multi-million-dollar opportunity or this big role and you don't even care about it. But what is crazy to me is literally Jacob Elordi has said the exact same thing. There's this insane video I want to play for you.
I mean, I just play what they give me. You know, I need a job.
I needed a job. I'm being so serious.
Like word for word, side by side, they're saying the same thing. Like, oh, I just like did it because like this is the role that was handed to me and this is what I wanted to do. Like, and again, I think there's just so much ridiculous criticism. Again, talking about criticism of women, criticism of people being POC, and also like people love to hate on something once it's viral to hate on something. You know, like I think after this Snow White thing, people really fixated on this idea of her being a bad person. And going back to the Snow White thing, it got so escalated, it was crazy. Ben Shapiro made a video about it, which is like fucking bonkers. I mean, he is objectively insane, but because talking about how the name and character are already defined, Snow White needs to be a white woman. Because white is in her name, he has to be white. But also I'm like, okay, so Sirius Black from Harry Potter was not black. Blackbeard in Pirates of the Caribbean was not black. And that's a show about the Caribbean. Do you know what people look like from the Caribbean? Like, it's so interesting to me that, oh, these people and white nationalists are only viewing this as an issue and it's somehow not a white person. You know what I mean? And also like what blows my mind is like, I do think Rachel Zegler like objectively looks like Snow White. Like they really look very similar, like facially, the hair, like I don't know. It's just like, I think she's a good casting for it. Also, she's extremely talented. She can sing, she can act. She's been in other Disney productions. Like it just made sense to me. And also just the irony of like a white American telling somebody they're taking an opportunity from somebody else, like literally saying that on colonized land in like a gentrified apartment building. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, the call is coming from inside the house, babe. Like if there's one thing America's known for, it's taking things from other people. So this also like starts this spewing rhetoric online and this like red pill circle of podcasts about anti-white racism. And it's crazy to me because like a year later, these are the same people who are defending Donald Trump for when he was saying that all immigrants are eating cats and dogs. Let's just sit with that for a minute, okay? Like, yeah, you're so right. Snow White's the real problem. Like, we can't have a POC person as Snow White. That's really what's terrifying about the current state of America. And it's like, just also the idea of like, cats, like she's qualified and talented. I don't get it. Why are you so mad about this? And like the entire situation just blows my mind. And diversity is so important in these movies. And people fail to realize that because the entire point of these remakes is that there has been this narrative for so long of who gets to be a princess. And that was all white women. White men are princes and white women are princesses. That was it. And the whole point of these is that now any little girl out there can see themselves as a princess. And people go, oh, well, movies shouldn't be political. But all art is political. Every artistic movement and every decade, every century has been political. And the sheer irony of like these conservatives getting mad at Rachel Zegler and Disney when they love to complain about cancel culture, love to complain about the woke left, then have an aneurysm about like a qualified, talented POC woman playing a prominent Disney princess. Like, what is the issue? And media and art are so important because they are what builds the foundation for what we perceive as normal. Again, especially in these young girls. Like for literally nearly a century, this idea of who got to be a princess was only white people. And that's just not true. Even historically, like that's not true. But there was no representation in those films. And that's really alienating to these people. Like what is so aggravating to you about a young POC or black girl, like seeing that she can be a princess, can do something great, can even be in a movie, can even be in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, it just angers me so much that people think that that is like a bad part of these films, when I would argue that's the entire point of these films. The entire point is that, yeah, like we need to rewrite this narrative that anybody can be who they want to be, that anybody can be, you know, the princess or the main character. I don't know. It just pisses me off. And I think about it all the time, like how much people fixate on these little things. Also blows my mind that like people were fixating on Rachel Zegler, a Latina woman playing Snow White, but like all 7 dwarfs in the movie are like CGI. And I'm like, okay, like wouldn't that have been a great opportunity to cast like 7 people who are all like actually like, you know, like little people in real life or had some sort of disability and like could play the role of one of the dwarves? Like you see how much the role of Tyrion in Game of Thrones did for like Peter Dinklage's career, you know, and he is like cast in so many movies now. He's like a super famous actor because he like had the body and disability of the role in that character. Like, why are we not doing that in Disney? You know what I mean? Like that would have been such a better opportunity if we really want to talk about like casting issues in Snow White. But I don't know. It was just, the whole situation was bonkers to me. And it's just, you know, the people on the internet love to hate on things and start this hate train of things. And again, it's when you are going back to the original quote at the beginning, like the extent of your slay determines if what you do is okay. And at this time, people had this perception of Rachel Zegler being annoying or stuck up. So they had to see her being in Snow White as some big major issue. But then when the Hunger Games movie comes out, everybody's obsessed with her. So moving on to the Hunger Games. Hunger Games, I mean, it was also just like a perfect role for her. I think that even the casting directors have in interviews stated that like when they were, you know, starting to plan the movie, that like she was one of the actresses that they had in mind because she was young and she was fresh. They wanted to bring someone new into this very big established franchise, but she had the vocals, like Lucy Baird is a singer. And Katniss and Lucy Gray are meant to be opposite sides of the same coin. To quote Rachel Zegler, Katniss is a fighter that was forced to perform. Lucy is a performer that was forced to fight. And the entire movie is built off this parallel. Katniss is this huntress, this warrior. She enters the game by choice, and her whole strategy of winning is by fighting. Even in the end, she wins the games by this big act of defiance, threatening to off herself. Whereas Lucy doesn't try to play the game. Lucy plays the players, and she wins by controlling the media, by making people love her. Even her relationship with Snow, right? She is playing him, and the way she ends up winning and escaping is because she used him. And I think it's so interesting too, of these like two girls from the same district, coming from the same circumstance, going into the same thing, but they have this complete like opposite approach to it, and how interesting that is, you know, too, again, of how like why it shapes Snow to be this like very angry and bitter man who is eager to use anyone and anything to get his way and like climb this ladder. I thought it was such like a beautiful duality, and like something that made the franchise so cool to me. Like, I love when a prequel story adds something to the original, or just like makes me view the original in a different way, even if it's not like changing the scenes or anything, you know what I mean? Like it's just giving you context about these characters that makes their actions make more sense. And I think that is like a really interesting part of like good story writing and good storytelling. So after this film comes out, everybody fucking loves her. She's amazing. She's in red carpet. She's in the interviews. Like, I was literally scrolling through just like comments of things, and it was insane how like you could look at these like media company accounts, like an Entertainment Tonight or something. It would be like doing an interview, and a year ago, comments, hate, negative. She's awful, blah, blah, blah. Won't be seeing this movie, blah, blah, blah. You look at any interview on the same account now. She's so talented. She's so witty. She's so charismatic. I love her, blah, blah, blah. What is really the takeaway from this Rachel Zegler story is like, one, don't shy away from criticism, especially when you're right. She knew what she was right about. And that, whether that was her posting a video on Twitter of her singing Shallow by Lady Gaga and proving some random stranger hater wrong, then that video getting 12 million views, whether that was, talking about how she wanted to do something different in Snow White and have a slightly different interpretation of the character that was maybe slightly more just like had more scenes alluding to her relationship with 7 men that she lives with. I don't know. The idea of a single woman living with 7 men is crazy to me. Like, maybe we should dive into that a little bit more. You know what I mean? And I get it. I get that people are very protective about Disney, protective about this idea of nostalgia. But what it really shows to me is that there is no nuance in the internet. You are loved, you are hated, and there is no in between. And like the next time you see something like this from an actress, from a music artist, whatever, like people are like, oh my God, they're so out of touch. Oh my God, I hate her. I can't stand her, blah, blah, blah. And then they create a new piece of art or put something else out that's really well perceived, and then people love them again. You know, like I would even argue this like as weirdly happened with like Ariana Grande this year, another great example, where she like was hated so much when this Ethan Slater situation comes out, puts out an album, everybody loves her. In the Wicked movie, everybody loves her. And it's crazy because it's like there's no nuance. You know, there's no like, let's look at the actions. Let's look at the reasoning. It's just recency bias. It's just recency bias. And like that, I think is so like aggravating and interesting to me about these stories, and like why I really wanted to talk about Rachel, because I think like what has happened to her in the past 365 days is such a time capsule for how the internet reacts to everything. You know, like it's so interesting to see her like this. And also people have no empathy. Like, oh my God, a 17, 18-year-old girl who literally was in high school a year ago now is starring in 2 Disney productions. This is like her 4th red carpet ever. Didn't answer the question perfectly and correctly. Duh, like why? She's a child, dude. Like that's fine. Have some empathy. I even feel this way about like the way people talk about like Charli D'Amelio on the internet, especially like when she was a minor. Oh my God. Like I'm not like a Charli D'Amelio fan or anything by any means, but like I don't know, like people were like, her business did blah, 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 blah. I'm like, she's 16, dude. Like she's not a CEO. She's a teenager. Like when you were 16, you were stressed about your driver's license. Like this, you know, like have some empathy towards the situation or the context of the situation that we exist in the context from which we came. I don't know. I'm so excited to see where her career goes from here. She's doing a Spellbound movie. Also, she has an animated movie coming out this month on Netflix. It's like a Disney style animated movie, which is so interesting to me because I think it's like Netflix's first stab at trying to like take that sort of market share from Disney, which is super interesting. It's like for kids. The entire thing is like animated in that Disney Pixar style. And that is actually just like the concept I think very fascinating to me. And cool, there's music involved. Like she sings in it. I'll post some of the things, but Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications. Follow us on Spotify. Oh my God, please, please, please. We're so close to 50K. Let me know what I should do. Give it a 5-star rating. 10 seconds of your day has the potential to completely change my life. And I'll see you all next week. Bye.